Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how to change your past. And yes, of course, you can't actually go back in time and change what happened and change the decisions you made and things like that. But you do get to view your past however you want to. Okay? So, to start, I'm going to illustrate this concept for you, and then I'll walk you through how to kind of do it yourself. So I'm going to tell you my story, but I'm going to tell it in two different ways. Okay, so here's the first version of my past. So I grew up in a house with many siblings. I'm the youngest of 12. And we were not very wealthy. In fact, I would say that we were poor most of the time, my dad being in and out of work. And so I had a lot of really limited opportunities. I didn't ask my parents to do special activities like dance or karate or things like that I wanted to do because I just knew that we weren't going to have the money for it. My father is mentally ill. He's got bipolar disorder, and that caused a lot of problems in the home. And I, for most of my life, felt very uncomfortable around my dad. And so that was very straining on our relationship, of course. I always kind of felt like my parents didn't really care what I did, especially as a teenager. I remember just being able to stay up till all hours of the night, break curfew and not be punished. I had whatever friends I wanted, which sometimes were not super positively influential. I would break a lot of, not house rules, because I can't say that we really had house rules per se, but just like my parents' standards of what they believed I should be doing, and they didn't really say or do anything about it. And I feel like that was really bad on their part. That I should have had more attentive parents that really cared about what I did and punished me when I did things wrong so that I would have learned better, so that I wouldn't have had such a difficult teenage years through high school, making so many horrible mistakes. I had my first boyfriend when I was 16. We dated for about 9 months, and I was totally in love with this boy. He was 2 years older than me. He was 18. And I thought that the sun shined out his backside, despite all evidence that he was actually not a very good guy. He would lie to me. I have no proof of this, but I'm pretty sure he cheated on me. Our relationship started when he was already in a relationship. So he's like, I'm going to break up with her so that I can be with you. And for some reason, I didn't see anything wrong with that. Like, oh, that's wonderful. He loves me so much, when actually, oh, you're kind of cheating on her. And that relationship ended horribly. He he called me up because he was in the military at this point when he was breaking up with me, and told me that he was still in love with somebody else that he was dating years before, and that they had reconnected, and that he just couldn't date me anymore. And I was devastated, and I found out later that wasn't even true. And then he started dating one of my best friends. And so I had a huge falling out with her, and then I felt all guilty about not being her friend anymore, and not just accepting her for who she was, even though she was dating my ex-boyfriend, whom I loved so much, who I was coming to learn had lied to me throughout our entire relationship about everything and anything. I was really confused because I didn't know what was right and what was wrong. Like, I didn't know what to believe at all. I felt like the last 9 months of my life had just been a giant lie. Um, and it took me years to get over this huge betrayal on both the boyfriend and my friend's part, right? Like, no, for me to get over their betrayals. And then, so after we broke up, I started dating a lot of different guys. And they were all losers. Like, I would date guys that just wanted to make out with me, that they didn't even care about me at all. I dated someone who, like, pretended like he would say that he was really into me, and then later we'd be hanging out with some friends and he would be flirting openly with one of my other friends. I was getting into a lot of trouble, personally, not really with my parents, but just like not feeling good about myself, not valuing myself, and allowing guys to treat me poorly. After high school, I didn't go to college. I waited a while. I took a semester here and there. I didn't actually know what I wanted to do, and I didn't get a degree until I was 28 years old. During the time that I wasn't going to school, I had a job as a teller at a credit union. And I had different bosses throughout the 6-year period that I was working there, but none of them liked me. Only one of them liked me. They would say that I was always late, which most of the time I was by a couple of minutes. And they would say that I was lazy and that I didn't take the time to really understand my job and to put more into it. I had one boss who would call me in almost at least once a week and tell me how I was being disrespectful and how people were complaining about me. And I got blamed for things that I had nothing to do with. And then when I would try to defend myself, I would be told by my boss and upper management that I should just take responsibility and not make excuses. I really hated that time, but I had to work. At this point, I had a family to support. When things were getting really, really bad at work, I had a family to support. My husband was in school, and my job provided insurance, so I couldn't quit. Things got really difficult, and I really was believing that maybe there was something wrong with me. Like, why don't these people like me? How come I keep getting such bad feedback when I'm trying so hard? And I really thought that I was a good person, and there were so many like backhanded comments too. And other like my fellow employees, some of them would ignore me or talk badly about me. When I started having kids, I believed that I was a really terrible mother. I was yelling and not hurting, but like I was yelling and being very upset all the time at these little things that of course children do. And it was all because of this depression that I didn't know I had. And I finally get diagnosed with the depression, but I was still so angry so often. And so I thought there was really something wrong with me as a person, as a human, and that there was nothing I could do about it. And right now I've got 4 kids, and they're a huge handful, and life is just crazy trying to run my own business and do my own podcast, and I'm going to stop there, okay? So that's one way that I could tell my story. Not very fun, right? So here's a different way that I'm going to tell the exact same story. Okay, both of these stories are 100% true. But I, as the author, get to decide how I tell it. So here's version number 2, okay? So I grew up in a large family. I always had people to talk to and friends to play with. I grew up in a cul-de-sac. Okay, so it was so fun to grow up in a cul-de-sac. And my grandmother and my sister, with all of her children that were actually my age, grew up down the street from me. And across the street from them was my best friend Karen. And at night, we would play night games in the summer in our cul-de-sac, so I didn't have to go anywhere to try to find night games. They were always out right in front of my house because it was the most ideal place. And I had so much fun growing up. I always had family. I always had friends. They were on the same street. My heck, it was so cool. I have parents who love me so much, and they allowed me the space to be who I was. And they tried really hard to teach me to do the right things and to be on the right path, but they allowed me the space to make my own mistakes and to learn from them. And maybe they weren't perfect. In fact, of course they weren't perfect because no parents were. But I'm so grateful to have parents that loved me and that really did try. And to know that my mistakes, that they were hurting for me because of those mistakes. When I was 16, I went through I was 17 when I got my first boyfriend when I was 16, and we broke up when I was 17. And it took me a really long time to get over this breakup. But I learned forgiveness and the ability to move on from pain in an incredibly significant way. This was probably the very best, if not the only way, for me to truly learn forgiveness at the level that I have learned it. And the fact that I can look back on that experience now and have compassion for this boy, because at the time he really was just a boy, making mistakes like we all make, that's very significant. And I would not choose to have it any other way, because I get to use this power, this skill of forgiveness all the time now. And it feels amazing when I do. After high school, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I didn't go to college. And I feel like that was actually a really good idea. It was good for me to not go to college and just do generals and pretend that I was going somewhere and waste that time and money. Instead, I decided to go on kind of an adventure. And I moved down to St. George, Utah to live with my friend. And the very first person she introduced me to is my now husband. It was so easy for me to find my husband. It was totally meant to be. After so much time of selling myself short, I finally found someone who was going to love and cherish me, and he does to this day. When I was 18, I got a job working at a credit union, and because they were all over the state, I was able to move around the state and keep my job for 6 years. It was amazing. I started in Ogden, I went to St. George, I went up to Logan, and I had, I think, 4 different bosses. And my last boss was so incredible. He believed in me and encouraged me so much. He's like, why don't you just try for bigger and better things? Why don't we just see what you can do? And I took that and I ran with it. I ran fast and hard. I went from being a level 5 teller to a level 10 loan officer in 1 year, which is pretty fast. I know you guys don't have the reference for it probably, but it was really fast. And when I became a loan officer, I exceeded every goal that they ever gave me. And not just by a little. Like some months it was they would ask for like 80% and I'd get like 120%. Okay? You guys, I was so good. And my boss was so great. He thought that I was amazing. He gave me letter of recommendation later when I asked for one, and it was a glowing letter of recommendation. And I couldn't have been more proud of myself that I had looked at these goals and just went after them and exceeded them and learned to work hard and to set my sights high and to push myself. Because before having this boss, and he was the last boss I had before I quit, it was kind of a challenging environment to be in, but I stuck with it and I learned perseverance. And then when I got this boss, it was like it all paid off, that I was able to really grow into who I wanted to be as an employee with this company. I have 4 amazing, beautiful children who make me laugh hysterically despite myself. Like last night, I wanted to be so mad that my daughter woke up crying for her little dog, her little stuffed animal dog. And I'm like, why do you have to do this? But when I went into her room and picked up her blanket, the little dog fell out and she goes, there it is, I found it, and got it and grabbed it and got back in bed. And all I could do was sit and laugh. Like, oh my goodness, she is just so darn cute. Can't even be mad right now. But when I first started having children, I noticed that I was really angry a lot of the time and I didn't understand why. And that persuaded me to go to the doctor. And that's when I was diagnosed with depression. And it made so much sense. Finally, I had the answers to why all through high school I was so sad, and now as a mother I was so angry. It explained so much, and now I had a way to actually treat it and get over it. And of course, the journey didn't stop there. Like, my medication didn't take care of all of it. And so there was a lot of ups and downs, but I learned from those experiences, one, how to better understand my father and have more love and compassion for him, which was a big deal. And I went on a journey that led me to becoming a coach. I found coaching. I learned about it. I changed my life dramatically, and my view of the world dramatically. And now I can share my experience with others and teach them how to love themselves and how to love their life despite having depression. So, like I said, both these stories are completely factual, but I got to decide how I told my story, and I like to tell my story the second way, not so much the first way. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that I never complain, quite the contrary, but we have the power to view our lives however we want to. So why not view it in a way that serves us, that inspires us and propels us forward, that makes us feel love, compassion, and gratitude, right? So here's a couple of questions that you can ask yourself as you're trying to maybe rewrite a story that you would rather tell in a different way. How was your past actually perfect for you? How was it the perfect path for you to take to get you where you are? Like, what did it teach you? Things like that. How did your past shape you for the better? So that's what I want you guys to think about. And go ahead and put pen to paper. Rewrite your story. You can totally change your past. All right, you guys have an amazing week. I'll talk to you later.